Jesus teaches about love and compassion on a sunlit hillside as he calls for his followers to embrace generosity over greed. In another poignant moment, he fiercely challenges the money changers in the temple, embodying his deep disdain for those who exploit others for wealth. In a heartfelt moment, a young man grapples with the teachings of Jesus on the Mount, fully aware that greed leads to spiritual emptiness. Meanwhile, Jesus highlights the struggle of a wealthy individual, urging him to reconsider his priorities and the hold that riches can have on the soul. As Jesus shares the parable of the rich fool, his disciples reflect on the fleeting nature of wealth while sitting peacefully under an olive tree. In a contrasting scene, a humble widow steps forward to offer her last 2 coins, embodying the true spirit of generosity that Jesus cherishes. In a bold display of righteousness, Jesus fearlessly challenges greedy merchants in the bustling marketplace, causing a stir among the witnesses. Later, in a more tender moment, he shares a simple meal with the poor, exemplifying his commitment to serving those who are often overlooked by society. With a radiant glow surrounding him, Jesus passionately teaches the crowd about the importance of heavenly treasures over earthly riches, capturing their attention and hearts. Meanwhile, the rich young ruler turns away in sadness, weighed down by the challenge of relinquishing his wealth for a greater purpose. In a touching moment, Jesus embraces children, emphasizing that the essence of greatness lies in humility and innocence, not in material wealth. At the same time, he warns his disciples about the treachery of riches, using the lavish items around them as a stark reminder of the pitfalls of greed. On a verdant hillside, Jesus earnestly addresses a multitude, cautioning them against the love of money and the dire repercussions it can bring. In a contrasting and somber scene, a wealthy man suffers, serving as a poignant reminder from the parable of Lazarus, highlighting the spiritual cost of greed. In a moment of grace, Jesus kneels to heal a beggar, embodying his compassion for the marginalized and his disdain for the greed that neglects the vulnerable. He then addresses a wealthy crowd, passionately urging them to use their resources to uplift those in need, reminding them of their moral responsibility. With righteous anger, Jesus overturns the tables of money changers in the temple, a bold act symbolizing his rejection of greed and the misuse of sacred spaces for profit. In a thoughtful moment, he shares the parable of the rich fool, cautioning against the futility of accumulating wealth while neglecting the spiritual essence of life. In a poignant gathering, Jesus sits among the poor and outcasts, breaking bread and demonstrating that true wealth lies in kindness and generosity. He then stands before the wealthy, challenging them to consider their responsibilities towards the less fortunate, prompting thoughtful reflection on their priorities. With sincere intensity, Jesus recounts the tale of the widow who gave her last 2 coins, illustrating that true generosity comes from the heart, not the amount. Surrounded by eager listeners, he shares profound teachings about the perils of greed, encouraging a life of selflessness and compassion. In a serene moment, Jesus shares the parable of the pearl of great price, emphasizing that true treasure lies in spiritual fulfillment rather than earthly possessions. His disciples listen intently, contemplating the profound contrast between the fleeting nature of wealth and the lasting value of spiritual enlightenment.